Good morning, Jeff. Welcome to our session, on the professional series talk. It has been a great honor you being as part of this particular session. Welcome to session. So, I'll just brief introduce about yourself to the audience so that we can start with that part. Friends, welcome everyone to our session on the professional series talk. And today we have a very, very distinguished guest who has almost around 40 years of corporate experience. It's my great pleasure to welcome Jeff Thomson to our professional talk series. Jeff has completed his graduation from Montclair State University 3 to 4 decades back, has been part of prestigious organizations like AT&T at senior most director level, CFO business sales and financial director level. AT&T is a part of Fortune 500 company, an amazing company in the telecom sector. Post that in 2008, Jeff taken over as president and CEO of MyLogic. And I have seen how IMA has evolved over 15 years, under Jeff's leadership. It has been a amazing journey, IMA, from, predominantly focused in US. Now IMA's presence is available across the globe, particularly in Indian and Chinese market. And IMA and the entire students fraternity owes a lot to Jeff for those contributions. I would call it as a second innings of Jeff has started in 2024 onwards, but in the same vigor, we were discussing, that in fact, if he has increases the workload, I'm not surprised. So he has been advisory board of many of the leading organizations, advisor for many of the educational institutions leading institutional organization, and has a voracious reader and have an extensive knowledge on the latest technology and other aspects, which is very relevant. And that's the reason why we have selected today our topic as AI and ESG, a partnership of opportunity for aspiring finance professionals. So that is the sessions we are having today. And I'm sure at the end of the session, you will have a lot of insights with respect to what is ESG, how the partnership between AI and ESG will be helpful. All these things, you will get a lot of insights out of this session. Before we start the session through Jeff, I will probably give you an insight about how we are going to drive this session. Initially, Jeff will quickly walk you through the sessions with few slides about giving insights about what exactly ESG and how AI works with ESG and the potential possibilities of professionals. And, most of you are finance professionals or aspiring finance professionals, how it is going to be useful for you. All these aspects, Jeff will be touching upon it. And on those specifics, probably with the interest of students, we'll be exchanging few questions, and Jeff's insights and deep understanding on those will be passed on to us. That will be the next part of it. And finally, we will keep the forum open for question and answer sessions for the students. So that's how the flow of the session today. With that, Jeff, once again, welcome to our session. And we have a students community predominantly who are doing professional programs, either completed or are pursuing. That's the audience. As I mentioned, students are watching through LinkedIn Live as well as through YouTube Live. So over to you, Jeff, completely. Looking forward to your thoughts with respect to AA and ESG.
First, right, thanks. Thanks, Vinod. I assume you could see and hear me still well, but hopefully everybody is doing well. I give you a lot of credit for being engaged in continuous learning and growth on a Saturday evening. So congratulations. I probably have met several of you possibly during my many trips to your beautiful country, North, Central, and South, during my nearly 15 years as CEO of IMA. Look, my bottom line message is this is an incredibly exciting time to be part of this profession of, call it finance and accounting. It's a little bit of finance, a little bit of accounting, whether you're a chartered accountant or a CMA or CPA, CFA, etc. it really is a great opportunity because the market is characterized by extreme uncertainty, disruption, transformation. And we're going to be talking about, two of those more significant trends, what some call artificial intelligence, which of course is the technology that you're seeing around you every day as consumers. And then ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. Think of it as non-financial measures of performance. Think of the enterprise as consisting of both financial processes and outcomes and non-financial processes and outcomes that make up the totality of the enterprise, the environment, innovation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, obviously climate and carbon emissions. All of these things are part of what make an enterprise grow and flourish. And not only that, but over the course of time, we've kind of evolved from just focusing on the interest of shareholders to the interest of many stakeholders, including corporate social responsibility, the broader Earth, and its scarce resources. So talking about the profession, when I think about what you're studying, and perhaps you're studying CMA, some might be studying dual, chartered accountancy, India's CMA, it doesn't matter. We want to make sure that we cover two broad areas of influence in making a difference in our organizations and for society. One is we are stewards of value. We protect value. We want to make sure that the financial statements we produce are timely, accurate, ethical. We stand on a foundation of integrity, trust, and ethics. So we are stewards of value in protecting the organization's hard-earned reputation. But we're not just the folks who keep the books, who keep the numbers, who do the reporting. We're also increasingly creators of value. So think of stewards of value and creators of value, and they come together to describe the influence and impact we collectively have on organizations. Value creation is things like being involved in strategic planning, in scenario analysis, in sensitivity analysis, in simulations, in data analytics. My background is actually in mathematics and statistics. And so I'm a big believer that we will propel our profession forward in making an impact in the organization if we build in and infuse more data analytics into our curriculum. The CMA curriculum, as you know, was revised several years ago to include more in the areas of technology and analytics. So a lot of opportunity when we think about AI and ESG. As we talked about, there is a vast opportunity here. And, when I was talking about being stewards of value, kind of our historical role in book close, in accounting standards, it's really about hindsight and oversight, looking at the past, accurately depicting the past so we can predict and optimize the future enterprise in a very, very uncertain world. And again, that value creation part is the part I don't want you to forget about as it relates to artificial intelligence, which, by the way, I always prefer to think of as augmented intelligence, the co-pilot, the additional asset who happens to be more of a robot and more in the cloud and generative AI and things like that. And how do we harness technology in general, traditional artificial intelligence and new generative artificial intelligence? How do we harness the power and the value of that for our organizations and society? How do we manage the risk? How do we govern the potential for harm to individuals, to organizations, and to perhaps an entire society? Well, we play a major role. Think enterprise risk management, think internal controls, think corporate governance. And then we get into ESG, which is not just a reporting annoyance. It's also critical to the future of not only the organization, but the Earth in many, many ways, in terms of what's going on with extreme weather events and climate change and carbon emissions. And your government actually, and your Securities and Exchange Bureau of India, has taken a very aggressive stance on reporting expectations of organizations as good corporate citizens. Well, guess what? Behind every important strategic initiative or compliance requirement is a strong, ethical, high trust, high data analytics, accounting or finance professional, and that's you. And then we're going to kind of say, hey, you know what? Artificial or augmented intelligence is critical. ESG or non-financial reporting and enterprise analysis is important, but how do they come together? And of course, Vinod and I encourage your ideas in chat throughout. So I was telling Vinod I could actually lead this discussion, and being a math type, I could actually lead this discussion in one slide. And if you know what this is called, it's not a trick question. I'm not going to give you a bunch of math and statistics questions going on the rest of this presentation. But if you want to put in chat, just have a little bit of fun what that is. And then I'll kind of describe why I could actually use it as the centerpiece for the rest of the conversation. Well, if you said Venn diagram, VENN, you're absolutely right. It's a graphic from probability and statistic that talks about different outcomes or processes. The middle part is the intersection of the two. The outside elements are the unique parts of the circles or the processes. So more specifically, it's a Venn diagram. You see here, I talk about accountancy rising to the occasion, aspiring to do more and do better. And what I simply mean by that is what I said earlier. No doubt about it, our role as stewards of value is our bread and butter, as we say, our table stakes, what we've always done well, closing the books, maintaining the accounting standards, putting out statutory and internal reports for decision-making and compliance. All of those things are critically important. But if we're not opportunistic and upskilling and looking to the future, in the other bucket that I talked about, remember, value creation, getting more aware and adept at strategy, strategic planning, scenario analysis, sensitivity analysis, forecasting, FP&A, data analytics, data science. That forward-looking element is critically important for us and the future of our profession. So you see in the left part of the Venn diagram is technology and artificial intelligence, not necessarily specific to ESG. On the far right, you have the ESG only, which is its own body of knowledge, kind of like part of a balanced scorecard, not just short-term financials, but broader performance measurements that need to be measured, modeled, analyzed, predicted, and reported. And then you have that sweet spot of essentially technology enabling ESG. So I've often talked, and Vinod and many of you who know me know that I often talk about the race for relevance. We'll talk a little bit more about that. It is very much a race, and we can't get left behind as finance and accounting professionals making a difference. We need to urgently upskill in some of the areas that I talked about to give that total picture of the organization, not just for the next quarter or the next year, but perhaps the next 5 years, and how we can make a difference in society. We need to do a better job at describing the beauty and value of our great profession. Some would look at our profession and say, it's boring, you do numbers all day, you're going to get replaced by robots anyway. Why would I want to join this profession, right? Of course, I have the other view that says it's an exciting profession. It's one that's growing as the market grows, but only if we keep up with the change. And we can make this exciting for many of you, by the way, I'm sure are young professionals. Infusing technology and analytics into the core of our great profession is just an incredible opportunity for us to grow the organization in the face of uncertainty. And it is a what we often call VUCA, volatile, uncertain, ambiguous, complex. And boy, when you apply good governance processes, enterprise risk management, internal control, and the list goes on and on. All of these things are competencies that you're learning or have learned through your CA studies or, hopefully even your CMA studies. And then finally, gonna, just leave this slide, then I'll stop sharing and we'll get more into the conversation. It's all about trust. It's all about being data-driven with high integrity. It's all about managing risk, the good, the bad, the ugly, for example, of AI. But it's also about change. And this quote from Tom Hood talks about a simple mathematical inequality. Those who could keep the rate of learning. Notice it doesn't say the rate of production, like how many reports I produce or at what pace. It's your and the organization's ability to learn and grow in the face of change and competition. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. We've kind of set the stage here, and looking forward to your questions and Vinod's questions as well.
Sure. Jeff, as I mentioned, probably we'll have this chats continuing, and later we'll have a 10 to 15 minute slot for students.
Sure.
So Jeff, a good start. We touched upon the technological aspects. We touched upon, the ESG part of it and a combination of it. The hybrid comes in.
Yep.
You touched upon relevance and influence. I have observed you speaking about relevance and influence in large scale in many of the forums. So what is a call to action for professionals when it comes to relevance and influence? Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest way to mitigate the risk of obsolescence and us not as human finance and accounting professionals not becoming obsolete is by continuously upskilling. I actually earned most of my professional certifications after I became CEO of IMA. I'm actually studying right now as we speak on a Saturday morning here in New Jersey. I'm studying for another certification for board members, actually, right? So it's all about continuous learning and growth wherever you are in your career. And for us as finance and accounting professionals, it's also the forward-looking competencies. Take as much data science, not just data analytics, but data visualization, data governance. More and more of the data we're dealing with, whether it's through AI or ESG and sustainability, is qualitative, unstructured. It's not as precisely sourced and reported as financial data, like for an income statement. So we have to look at this whole enterprise, short and long term, which requires our skills as analysts, as those who do business cases and cash flows and data modeling and predictions and things of that sort. So the name of the game here is to keep ahead of the fast-paced, uncertain, disruptive market through continuous upskilling and professional development and experiences too. Getting different experiences, different industry verticals, different countries, or maybe going from national to global. That's why when folks say, "Hey, should I get the India CMA or the US CMA?" I'm like, have you considered both? They're not competitive. One, of course, is more national. The other, of course, is more of a global passport. One's not better than the other, but man, that combination could really, really differentiate you and your organization. So it's a race. It's a race for relevance and influence. And we have to do our part. The kind of the negative, we call it glass half full, glass half empty view. The glass half empty view is, like I said before, robotics, AI, machine learning, cognitive computing. No doubt about it, it is going to eliminate some roles, some activities, the more routine, repetitive roles. But if we do this right as a profession, we can aspire to more advanced roles and add our insight and our foresight.
Perfect, Jeff, on that. as we agree, the Industrial Revolution 4 we are in, the things happen at a very, very rapid pace. The speed is something very, very critical. We are moving in a very, very aggressive pace. We don't know what is the technology tomorrow. It's been always dynamic, particularly Industry 4.0, we notice that changes. So in this relevance, you touched upon narrowly on the word trust. You highlighted about the value proposition. So probably you can highlight, because these are budding youngsters, the trust factor is very critical in connection with the value propositions. You can please touch upon the factor trust in the context of this, speedy environment, I'll call it.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. Sometimes on the Venn diagram, we look at activities and outputs individually in silos, as opposed to the intersection in the middle there. And so, for example, speed. Is it speed without impact on anything else? No, of course not. Speed and pace and agility and resilience are all important attributes, but trust and integrity, that is something that is paramount and a hallmark of our great profession, whether you're in Bangalore or Boston and, wherever you are in the world, and you're a finance and accounting professional. Trust. And how do you build that trust? Well, it's not only in the human interactions and behaviorally, but it's that you've got competence and talent and acumen in some of those areas that I talked about. When I think about AI and ChatGPT, and you could buy AI, generative AI for like $20-25 a month and experiment with it, right? But what about the foundation that governs and controls that? And by the way, when you go ahead and buy that and use it in your company, you're probably opening yourself to considerable challenges from a bias and cyber attack perspective. But what about the governance aspect to govern the data, both structured and unstructured? What about the enterprise risk management to manage all of the connected risks that come along with AI? What about the internal control? You might recall I'm a former board member of COSO that put out frameworks on internal control and risk management. But at the end of the day, if you don't start with that foundation of ethics and trust, you're not going to be a steward of value, nor will you be a creator of value. You'll just be kind of there, but not trusted and potentially not valued, and therefore not utilized to the full extent of your abilities.
Thank you for stamping on the trust part again, and of course the value propositions. So even before we get into the AIs and the ESGs, we are yet to come to the questions on that. But before that, now we touched upon the influence part, relevance part. We also highlighted on the trust as well as the value propositions in the context of speed. So what are your concerns with these changes happening around this world in a very drastic world? What are your major concerns in a person swimming deep into it? What do you foresee? What are your concerns in these areas at a high level?
Yeah, it's a great question, Vinod. And I admittedly, a bit of the eternal optimist and the glass half full for our profession. But if we take ourselves for granted, then we're not going to win the race for relevance and influence. And by that I mean we have to put a priority on upgrading our competence as a finance and accounting team and a community around the world. Speed is not necessarily our strongest attribute as a profession when you look at accounting standards. And I give a lot of credit to the new global organizations that have been created to standardize global reporting and create interoperability of ESG and sustainability metrics around the world. I give those organizations a lot of credit, but they often take years to develop these standards, and we've got to do better, right? The market is moving, especially technology, at such a rapid fire pace. So that's why I insert speed, not in place of trust and data analytics and value, but on the same level. So I'm a little concerned that we may not collectively as a profession see the sense of urgency of individuals, whether you're a 21-year-old starting your career, or, you pointed out a couple times 4 decades, and everybody knows I'm really an old person. But even me, 4 decades in, I'm still, literally when I close down here and let the dog out, I'm going to be studying for my my exam and my board simulation. So I'm concerned that we will not go at the same pace. I'm concerned that we won't rebrand our profession. Again, one view of our profession is boring, historical, in the past, going to be replaced by robots anyway. You wouldn't want to go to a party with these kind of people. The view I prefer is we're actually pretty interesting people. We come from diverse backgrounds. More and more, we're infusing strategy, data analytics, technology right into the heart of our curriculum and our profession. STEM is part of our great profession. It's not a side thing that we do when we have time. It's part of our profession. The word accounting kind of conjures up history and boredom. Maybe there's some branding opportunity there. Some people call it finance, some call it accounting, but we make a difference, and we have a huge impact on the future of our organizations, the future of society, and the future of our planet with its scarce resources.
Thanks for that, Jeff. So probably with that, I'll pitch into the questions on AI specific. We are discussing about state of AI and generative AIs these days, and the technology enablement when it comes to business or for consumers, or for that matter, profession, for our own profession. What is your thoughts with regards to that? How it's going to add value?
So artificial intelligence, and I don't know about you, but the word artificial doesn't sit right with me. I never quite understood why is it artificial? It's augmented. It's like I said earlier, a co-pilot. In fact, I think the Microsoft product is called Microsoft Copilot.
Excellent. You are right.
Right? And it really is a co-pilot. And I think that's a good way to think about it, as an asset to you as a human. Not better, not worse. It is what it is. But AI, traditional AI has been around for what? Decades, 20, 30 years probably. Also goes by name of machine learning. It's a little bit different, but about the same. Also known as cognitive computing, where basically the machine can learn, compile all of this data from different sources, and then help influence future decisions. But on the other hand, while it has the ability to significantly lower your costs and even create greater effectiveness through innovation, it also has the potential, especially generative AI, the more recent language-based IA driven by prompts. It also has the potential to destroy individual reputations, organizations and their livelihoods, as well as society at large. And so we play a major role either at the analyst level or at the CFO level, the CEO level. We play a major role in determining how do we drive forward with responsible AI. AI you can trust, putting the guardrails in place. You might know that just last month, the European Union came out with essentially its AI law on governing AI, and they do a risk-based framework. Well, the common denominator there for us in finance and accounting is knowing everything we can and learning everything we can about enterprise risk management, about corporate governance. Should we form an AI committee that kind of stays current on the latest technologies? Because the other thing is you don't want to go far in either extreme. If you say, well, I'm going to wait and see what happens, see what kind of laws that my government puts in place. In the meantime, your competitors could be eating your lunch. Generative AI has incredible, it could load 10 textbooks worth of data in one prompt. And prompt engineering, by the way, has become a big, big job title now for technologists. When you think about the data preparation and the records preparation and data cleansing that we do before, during, and after the financial book close process, generative and regular AI can automate all of that for us. We'll talk about this a little later, but the ability of AI to impact not only ESG compliance reporting for legal disclosures, but to also create new innovations and new environmental possibilities. So on one hand, it has extremely positive potential, whatever you call it. On the other hand, if we don't properly govern and manage it for the organization, for the individual, and for society, then we're also not doing our part as individuals and as citizens. I think about the impact that AI and generative AI, with the, more of the language-based, the potential that it has, it's very much in the finance value chain. In fact, those of you who are IMA members, and I think many, if not most of you, in January of this year, IMA put out a wonderful report on the impact of artificial intelligence on accounting and finance. It was a free report. It's on their website in January. And they actually have 4 cases of automating, streamlining, creating greater efficiency, meaning lower cost, and greater effectiveness. They have 4 cases: finance transformation, streamlining finance operations, inventory and supply chain management, and healthcare financial management. It also applies, of course, to the legal profession. Think about all the document preparation that, used to take weeks and maybe even months. Now it could actually take hours. Likewise, human resources. Likewise, consumer marketing and search engine optimization and hyper personalization, so that magically you're being marketed to for you, not for the cohort in which you. So hyper personalization and consumer marketing. But realize, you've heard the term hallucination. Sometimes generative AI hallucinates and puts out bad, erroneous information. So there has to be those guardrails and that sensitivity checking and that statistical outlier and quality analysis to make sure that what we're reporting, analyzing, and acting upon is of high integrity and actionable. That's the obligation. That's the opportunity.
Perfect, Jeff. I think that was very comprehensive. Probably I touched upon, probably I'm dragging you a little more deeper into it. When it comes to particularly the usage of AI across value chains, when we consider across business value chains, particularly in finance and accounting profession, some use cases, if you could touch upon, that would be something, they get a little more insights into it, probably into finance and accounts a little more deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and some of the numbers are absolutely startling. But so if let's say you're more on the data analytics side, I'm going to give more of a non-traditional example.
Yep.
And the reason that it's non-traditional is because around the world, we haven't totally infused, if you will, data analytics and data science into the core of our profession. We've made some good progress. As I said, the CMA exam that was updated, a few years ago, added in technology and analytics. I was still CEO at the time. And so I'm really proud that more and more, whether it's International Federation of Accountants or IMA or CIMA or ICAI, all wonderful organizations, it's heartening to see that we built those right into our profession. So if you're more on the data analytics side and doing modeling and regression analysis and forecasting, say in more of an M&A, FP&A function, there is a lot of setup work that you do. There's data collection, data aggregation, data cleansing, outlier analysis before you massage your data and analyze your data and do correlations and regression. There's creating, sample for auditing purposes, creating samples. All of these activities, and you all know it, that are involved, are very, very time consuming. Manual journal entries, reconciliations, bank recs. Well, quite frankly, AI has the ability to, do what used to take months in nanoseconds, and all of those activities that are either part of book close or FP&A. And, the IMA study from January will give you 4 specific cases on supply chain management and inventory management. But then there's also the ability to use AI for, let's suppose you're the CFO of a marketing function, like I was at AT&T. I was essentially the CFO of the sales and marketing function, where they look at customer profitability and customer lifetime value and target marketing. Well, if I'm at the strategy table and conceiving new ideas and new innovations, albeit from a finance and accounting lens, I want to know about this data mining capability, the ability to actually understand the behavioral characteristics of how customers behave, what they choose to buy, what they choose not to buy, and things of that sort, kind of consumer behavioral analysis. Well, AI can cut down on the number of possibilities from millions to a handful if you're trying to optimize, for example, your search. So from supply chain to search engine optimization, AI can be your co-pilot, which means that you individually have to be in the position to make sense of the data in its totality and offer your insight and be at the table as a trusted and strategic business partner.
Thanks, Jeff, for going deep diving into it. So probably the last question relating to AI, then we come to the ESG part of it. What are the kind of, I would say, the risk as well as opportunities with respect to AI, and possibly as a finance profession, how we ascertain, manage, or shout it out, So how we kind of communicate as finance professionals. So 2 parts to the questions. The first part, probably the risk and opportunities. Second is, as finance professions, how we analyze, ascertain, and then pass it on to the larger group as a responsibility of ours. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the governance aspect, and I realize that could be, perhaps you could argue maybe that's for the more senior people in the organization. I don't know, but I think the governance aspect is really, really important for the organization to set the stage and set the tone for how we're going to manage AI, for example, as an enterprise risk. We're going to continue to watch it. We're going to continue to track new developments from an innovation and technology perspective, because we don't want to be left behind the competition, for example, if they're a first mover on a great technology. We want to make sure it's viewed as both a risk and an opportunity. I encourage all of you, and I believe this is still part of your CMA studies, the COSO Enterprise Risk Management Framework, or ISO is fine, the International Standards Organization, but a framework that allows you to capture the risk and the opportunity. But there's also a deeper, more detailed support role needed in terms of data analysis and data modeling. And can we afford to invest in this new technology, whether it's software, hardware, bots, to streamline and mechanize our customer service, for example, so that our customer service can move from being on the defensive and answering basic questions about products and services to going on offense and upselling products and services. So, there's a larger organizational governance and strategic responsibility, but there's also a responsibility at the, kind of the grassroots level to do the data modeling, to do the data analysis, to do the cash flow and the business case on a new software, for example, that allows the marketing and sales group to do data mining for new targets and new prospects. Well, somebody has to do the analysis there that justifies the investment in the long-term possibility. Guess who that is? You're looking at them.
Right.
But only if we have the capability to do so. If we're afraid of math, if we're afraid of statistics, if we're afraid of technology, if we're afraid of strategy, even computer coding, I'm beginning to learn, although, maybe I should have learned it earlier, but, Python and R. I'm on the board of an organization that, actually trains state agencies around the US in these capabilities so they could serve the local society. And, as part of that, I'm used to Excel and SAS and commercial statistical platforms, but I don't know as much about R and Python. Learn it, use it, apply your judgment, and you'll be part of the race, winning the race for relevance and influence.
Sure. Jeff, with that, we come to the ESG part of our discussion. So what is ESG from a consumer or from a business or from a society as a large? What is your thoughts on ESG and why it is important? We hear this ESG very often. Why it is so significant? Your thoughts?
Yeah, and boy, we could have a whole special hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 2-day workshop on this. This is a really interesting topic, and you hit on it earlier, Vinod. It's a topic that affects us as, of course, businesses, but it is more broadly as consumers, as citizens, as sharing a planet with scarce resources. Some have referred to this as corporate social responsibility of a company to do more than just earn short-term profits for investors, but to also triple bottom line. You may have heard of people, planet, profits. May have also heard the term profits with purpose. You can't have one without the other. It's just like the Venn diagram. You have to have it all, right? Some will say, well, we're spending too much time serving investors. Well, no money, no mission. If we don't have profit, economic profit, we can't transition to cleaner, safer energy sources powered by financial modeling and data science, et cetera, et cetera. So, ESG, 3 letters, which, really need to be unbundled, is environmental, the impact of climate on financial statements or the impact of what you're doing as an organization on carbon emissions has been the primary early focus. S is social, which is human capital and governance and things of that sort. And then the G is the governance, how you organize your organization, how you mobilize, how you hold the organization accountable. I prefer to call ESG sustainable business management. Many of you know, and I think it's still taught on the CMA exam, the Balanced Scorecard developed by, I believe in the 80s, by Robert Kaplan and David Norton, is a holistic view of the enterprise, not just the financial view, but the customer view and the operations view and the innovation view. That's kind of what ESG is about, which means that we need to bring complementary skill sets to the table to take an enterprise view of the organization. There is a compliance aspect that we need to take seriously, where governments are increasingly mandating reporting of your climate risk. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission just put out some climate rules. The Securities and Exchange Bureau of India put out climate rules. If we're not compliant with these rules and report accurately and fairly and ethically, for example, on climate risk, then we could put the reputation of our organization to attract shareholders and customers at risk. But there's an awful lot of underneath reporting and compliance work necessary. Remember that being a steward of value in looking at the totality of the enterprise. But then there's also the creation of value, the opportunity to do data modeling around, hey, we want to over time migrate from oil and gas to wind and solar, right, at a very, very high level. What are some of the opportunities to do that? How much will it cost? What about carbon pricing and carbon credits? What's the analysis look like? What's the scenario look like? What's the sensitivity or simulation? All of those technical tools and capabilities I'm talking about it's people on this call in this room and on this virtual room that are going to make that happen. It just doesn't happen because a government regulator or SEBI or the SEC or ISSB says so. There has been some movement, as I alluded to earlier on, to create more of a global standard of reporting and interoperability, so you can do comparisons of an organization's carbon emissions or climate risk across the world. An organization was formed in June of 2022, I believe, the International Sustainability Standards Board. It sits at the same level as the International Accounting Standards Board that, think IFRS and things, to create more consistency and comparability. We're getting there. We're not quite there. We've made a lot of progress. But what I have just rattled off here is significant obligation for accountancy and accounting professionals and significant opportunity. Not only, and bottom line here, not only in reporting and being a steward of value and what's happened from a compliance perspective, from a regulatory and a legal perspective, but also from a going forward enterprise optimization, value creation perspective. We could do hours on that topic.
No, I could sense it. That's one of your favorite topic as well. So I'll not probably, my next question is very much connected and very much relevant for our students. See the reporting part of it, the mandatory reporting part of it. So I understand there are aggressive steps happening from European Union, particularly with respect to ESG. A lot of compliance requirements, mandatory financial reporting with respect to that. So what is the status of it? Where we stand at this moment of time, and whereas we are at what moment you feel that it's a global standards wherein it comes as a, as a part of our financial reporting, it becomes mandatory. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, kind of good news and bad news, or the challenge. The good news is that from a global standard, consistency, comparability, interoperability of reporting standards across the world, we've made a lot of progress. The creation of the International Sustainability Standards Board in June of 2022, or the ISSB, was a major step forward to consolidate and make sense of all of the different reporting frameworks that you may have heard of. India probably had its own homegrown framework, or still does. There's GRI. These are all had been voluntary frameworks. There's something called SASB, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. There's integrated reporting. And for a preparer or practitioner in one of these companies, they're like, wow, what do I don't want to be spending my money aimlessly and uselessly on unnecessary, irrelevant reporting when I could be investing it in the future of clean air and clean planet and water and nature and biodiversity. So we have made a lot of progress. There were two international standards put out by the SSSB. I believe the SSSB or the ISSB is working with the Securities Exchange Bureau of India to nationalize, because ISSB is not a kind of an entity that could dictate what gets done in India, but it's a strong baseline and a foundation for reporting that the authorities in India are working to make it consistent and make sense of it. But again, that's the reporting and compliance part, critically important, but it's also that integrated thinking and the possibilities to not just create a better resourced planet for the future, but to also potentially save the organization a lot of money through smart environmental innovations.
Right. Probably then my next question is specifically from students' perspective who are doing CMA or completed CMA. ESG reporting, it's a new wave of opportunity for finance professionals. So what do you think the opportunities for finance professionals, particularly when it comes to ESG reporting, how they can frame their career?
Right. Well, what we're seeing, Vinod, is the rise, at least in some parts of the world and possibly in India, but we see new job titles. Deloitte actually talks about the rise of the ESG controller. So more and more we're seeing ESG before or after other, instead of the financial controller, it's the ESG controller. everything we've just talked about relies and is fueled by data, whether it's external reporting for regulated compliance, where the data has to be pretty well described in terms of the regulator's needs, but also all of the data is what fuels the internal decision support and optimization and business plans and business cases and environmental transitions. It's all about data, how it's governed, how it's quality controlled, how it's risk managed, how it's modeled, and how it's used along with professional judgment to make insights and offer foresight on the future. So, in your curriculum, you should insist from SEMA, from IMA, from MyLogic, and you have the head guy right here, you should be insisting in quotes that they're continuously on top of infusing all of these technologies. We've talked about, augmented or artificial intelligence, loosely talked machine learning and cognitive computing. Quantum computing is another big technological area to watch out over the next 10 or 20 years, where you can run simulations to model different phenomenon, financial and non-financial, in seconds as opposed to hours, weeks, and months. So pay attention to quantum computing and Monte Carlo simulation. Be aggressive in your career. Go beyond what the curriculum says, actually, especially in the areas that I've suggested anyway.
No, that's something interesting, Jeff. Whenever I interact with you, I could always find a mathematician in you. Always you have. Good. So in fact, I just want to touch upon to the students' interest. I have seen, the students who completed CMA, finishing off certifications in ESG. Not just from a monetary perspective, they have almost around 4 times hike, but they climb their ladders exponentially. I have some of our students working in leading organizations like JP Morgan with amazing packages. So that's a possibility ESG brings on your table.
Yeah.
Probably I come to the last most critical question, Jeff. The compiling both aspects of our technology as well as the ESG part of it. How AI enables ESG, whether it is with respect to reporting, whether it is reporting to value creation or innovation. What's your thoughts? AI with ESG, how it moves?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And so on the reporting and compliance and data compilation side, it can absolutely help in, mining through different databases and different sources for qualitative and quantitative data, structured and unstructured. So, sort of along the lines of its capabilities on the financial reporting side. But it's also in the optimization, the value creation part that I think has the most potential, as long as we put the guardrails and risk management framework, as I talked about earlier. Probably I picked a good example here. And again, you could say, well, we really don't get involved in what the Microsofts are doing or the Ciscos are doing, but they cascade down to organizations eventually. Is this a technology I should be buying, pursuing? What about software? What about data architecture, data engineering? So a perfect example of using AI for ESG, more broadly speaking, is Microsoft. And I'm going to just read this quickly. Microsoft, in collaboration with a national laboratory, has discovered a material that uses AI and supercomputing that has the potential to reduce lithium usage in batteries by 70%. Okay. Now, lithium is not particularly environmentally friendly, quite frankly, and yet it's used to power an awful lot of things. That's also very dangerous and create fires like in New York City. But the Microsoft and this other lab used advanced AI and quantum, like the early stages of quantum computing, to take 32 million possible chemicals and materials, 32 million to 18, that now need to be tested to see if, hey, one of these, is it economical? Is it safe to reduce the lithium usage in batteries by 75%? So using AI and quantum computing to go from 32 million possibilities and go through different trials, and it's called Monte Carlo simulation, to get to 18, which is a manageable number. There's also new innovations that are arising in potentially using wood. I'm thinking wood, doesn't that get set on fire easily? But no, now, again, you have to draw the line on what the organization pays attention to. But if you're not staying ahead of these possibilities and their financial and enterprise implications, then you could be falling behind. So a lot of opportunity for AI as it relates to ESG and sustainable business management.
No, that was awesome conclusion with respect to the question answer session of ours. Jeff, we are spot on time. We will, with permission, we'll take few questions from students. Yep. Students, over to you. You can either unmute and shoot questions, or you can put it in chat box. Happy to address. Over to you.
Yeah, I put everybody to sleep, apparently.
No, not at all. This was very, very thought-provoking, and this is something where, the future lies, so this is one of the opportunities what they have to really expand their horizons. So any questions, anybody?
And while you're thinking of questions, we're also going to be providing you with a more detailed PowerPoint that kind of captures some of what we've talked about from a bigger picture that might be helpful. We do have a question. What's the difference between AI and AGI? Actually, not sure I know what AGI is. You've stumped me already.
AI, assume. Yeah.
What?
Balasubramanian, you can unmute and shoot.
Oh, okay, so you don't know. I didn't know what AGI is. Is it augmented and artificial?
Yeah, this is Balasubramanian. I recently heard about that generative AI, so I think it's AGI. So what is the difference between the AI and the AGI?
Okay, I'm sorry. Good question, and thank you for the question. So,
thank you.
As I alluded to earlier, I know we've been going at a very, very fast pace here, but I'm available for follow-up and talking and stuff. But so again, AI, let's just call it AI, has actually been around, the market for, I don't know, 20 to 30 years. Also goes by name of machine learning, cognitive computing. So, and as time has gone on, through blockchain and other things, it's been applied in the real world. Well, generative or language-based AI is prompt-driven. And by the way, the better quality prompt you type in or verbalize to one of the platforms, whether it's ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Google products, they all have something. The better the quality of your prompts in this generative AI. And what it does is, I used it, for example, I needed to write an article, and I just picked up one of the platforms, paid my $20 a month, and it did all the research for me and actually put out a draft of a business plan. Now, it still requires human intervention to make sure the quality is there, the integrity is there. But generative AI in the last, 2 years, its capability as a language-based, prompt-driven tool to automatically generate what used to take weeks, hours, months, days, whatever. But it needs to be used carefully. And there need to be guardrails around it. Just like, Apple and Samsung and, all the others kind of know every move you make because they track you on your phone. Well, we got to be a little bit careful here. But if you're not keeping your eyes open to the possibilities of generative and regular AI, you could be falling behind competitively. But you need to put that enterprise risk management, internal control, governance layer on it, or else you could be setting your organization up for failure or destruction even in a worst case. So great question.
Thanks, Jeff, for that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. It's a very good conversation with you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? You can unmute
Okay,
that.
well, I'm proudly wearing my, I know you can't see it, but I told Vinod earlier, I'm proudly wearing my CMA pin and also a CSCA, which is strategy, right? The strategy side as well. So it's been a real pleasure and honor. And if there's any, follow-up through MyLogic and my friend Vinod, I'll be glad to. If nothing else, I hope that I gave you a sense of additional excitement and opportunity, but with any opportunity to make a difference for our organizations or for the larger society, there's also an obligation for us.
Okay.
And if I were where many of you are in your career, I'd be gobbling up data science, data analytics, strategic planning, because I think it'll put you as an individual differentiating yourself through certification and continuous learning. It'll put you that much further ahead in a world that continues to get more and more uncertain and more volatile. And the mass shooting, just yesterday in Russia is so sad, so very sad. And here in the U.S., we seem to have a shooting a minute or an event that is like, wow, can this world become any more fragmented? Well, one thing about our profession is we do serve to unify. We are politically agnostic, and let's just continue to work together to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So we started our discussion with respect to, the speed. We discussed about the relevance, the speed, wherein the trust and values, how it important for finance professionals. Then we moved specific to AI. We discussed questions on what is AI, what the changes which is happening, particularly in the area of finance and accounts. We moved on to ESG. What is ESG? The reporting segments, the opportunities for youngsters, particularly finance professionals. We highlighted on that. We concluded saying how AI, the technology and the ESG works together. What is the future towards that? Opportunity for youngsters again in finance and accounts field. It was 1 hour flown like anything. It was very exciting, thought-provoking, and I'm sure this has given a new dimension for this young finance professionals, aspiring finance professionals. We could explore beyond the curriculum, and definitely by and large, through this exercise, they contribute to the larger society. Thank you so much, Jeff, accepting our invitation and sharing your insight. We look forward to more and more sessions like that. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Jeff. Thank you, Vinod. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day and rest of the week, and continue to make a difference and make a contribution to our great profession. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
All the best.